Hello friends, and welcome to a brand new camera comparison between the iPhone 15 against the iPhone 14. Right now we are recording at 4K at 30 frames per second. Tell me in the comment section below which one do you think has better colors and which one has a better audio.
Let's start by looking at some sample photos taken with the front cameras. iPhones typically follow a similar pattern each year, with small improvements from one generation to the next. This year, the iPhone 15 continues this trend by capturing slightly better photos than its previous version, although the differences are quite subtle. This year, the enhancements mainly focus on adding more details to the photos, making faces stand out with a bit more contrast. Now, let's take a look at the photos captured using their main cameras. In daylight, each photo is taken in auto mode without any manual settings adjustments, and without focusing on the screen. The iPhone 15 pictures are presented as 24 megapixels files thanks to its new 48 megapixels camera, while the iPhone 14 are at 12 megapixels. I use this method because it reflects how most people typically take photos. Similar to the front cameras, the main cameras also display consistent processing capabilities, producing natural-looking photos with excellent dynamic range and a lot of details. After looking these pictures side by side, I noticed that the iPhone 15 is doing a better job with darker areas, especially with the greenery, but the iPhone 14 is not far behind, and the overall tone and feel of the image remain quite similar to its successor. In this other sample, there's a slightly more noticeable difference in favor of the new iPhone 15. The picture appears brighter and has less contrast compared to the iPhone 14. As a result, the clock and the darker areas around it are more visible when compared to its predecessor. Both devices capture incredibly detailed photos, but I've noticed that the newer iPhone 15 produces sharper images. The greenery consistently appears brighter and is handled perfectly in the iPhone 15. While the iPhone 14 performs well in this regard, the improvements in the iPhone 15 are noticeable and enhance the overall image quality. When we switch to their ultra-wide cameras, we see the same pattern as before. The iPhone 15 performs better with greenery, while the iPhone 14 has slightly more contrast. iPhones have consistently maintained this trend across their lenses, and the new iPhone 15 continues to do so. Up until this point, in every scene, the iPhone 15 has been consistently brighter, but there's a change now as it appears slightly darker compared to the 14. Personally, I prefer the picture from the iPhone 15 as it complements the scene better with its darker and more contrasted appearance. There were some samples where I couldn't detect any differences, but honestly, this isn't a downside. The iPhone 14's ultra-wide camera is still impressive, consistently delivering outstanding pictures. In some occasions, the new iPhone 15 has a warmer color tone, which I personally find more appealing than the cooler colors of the iPhone 14. For example, if we examine the building on the right, it appears slightly washed out on the older device, although the difference isn't extremely pronounced. Overall, the ultra-wide camera of the iPhone 15 shows slight improvements, and in some samples, it indeed captures better pictures. However, it's worth noting that in many samples, there weren't any significant differences between the two devices so far. When taking pictures at 2x, the iPhone 15 seems to be doing better with colors and brightness. While the 14 isn't bad at all, the 15 is sharper thanks to its new sensor that can crop in at 2x without losing details. When capturing objects that are further away, there appears to be a more significant difference. Upon closer cropping, the iPhone 15 noticeably outperforms its predecessor in terms of sharpness. While it's still digital zoom, any improvement in this aspect is certainly welcomed. Their similarities continue even when taking portraits. Skin tones are accurate on both devices, and even clothing colors appear true to life. With the iPhone 15 you can finally manually adjust the focus. From what I've seen, the iPhone 15 performs better in terms of colors, and the overall subject appears sharper. However, it's important to note that the differences are minimal because even the iPhone 14 was already one of the best in this regard. When recording with their main cameras, honestly, both devices are astonishing. In the smartphone world, iPhones are the go-to devices for video recording, and these two are no different. The footage is very stable and the colors are on point, and I can't really say a bad thing on only for the 15 but for the 14 as well. Even when using their ultra-wide cameras, they are still great. For this category, I totally understand that they are almost identical since you can't really improve many things, especially when the iPhone 14 is so good. Transitioning to low light, where every picture is taken with night mode enabled, we can immediately see that both pictures are quite similar. Nevertheless, the new iPhone 15 appears to retain more facial details. The iPhone 14 already has one of the best front cameras, and in certain samples, it even surpasses the iPhone 15 in terms of capturing details. However, the newer iPhone 15 seems to offer better colors and an overall more pleasing image quality. With the main cameras in the first case, it's immediately evident that the iPhone 15 outperforms its predecessor. The image is brighter, well-defined, and even darker areas, such as trees, appear sharper. The new iPhone 15 appears darker compared to the iPhone 14, but it maintains the night scenery in a more natural and balanced way from the sky down to the trees. The older iPhone 14 is slightly brighter but tends to wash out light sources. In some cases, just like in daylight, the differences between the two devices are almost non-existent. As mentioned earlier, the iPhone 14 was already among the best in most categories, so the improvements in today's smartphones may not always be very significant. The improvements of the iPhone 15 at night primarily revolve around colors and sharpness, as demonstrated here, where it represents the night scenery better and presents a very pleasing image. While the warmer tone of the iPhone 14 is also commendable, I personally prefer the results from the iPhone 15. When using the ultra-wide cameras at the same location, honestly, besides the different color tone, I can't find any other noticeable differences. The iPhone 14 appears warmer, but apart from that, it matches the performance of the iPhone 15 in this scenario. As with every other comparison, the results can vary from scene to scene. In this particular case, the iPhone 15 outperforms the iPhone 14, with the greenery looking particularly impressive. The grass appears a bit dull on the iPhone 14, which is why I prefer the iPhone 15. Objects that are further away, such as the building in the center, also appear to be more detailed on the newer iPhone 15 compared to the iPhone 14. Overall, it seems that the ultra-wide camera represents an improvement compared to the iPhone 14, and in fact, the difference between these lenses appears to be more significant than the difference between the main cameras. At 2x zoom, it's clear that the iPhone 15 produces sharper images than its predecessor. Moreover, the picture from the iPhone 15 shines in terms of colors, truly representing the scene as it appeared in real life. Regular iPhones have been among the last smartphones to lack a dedicated telephoto sensor, but this year, the iPhone 15 appears to do a better job with digital zoom. On the other hand, the iPhone 14 isn't as sharp, and its pictures don't look as good when using zoom. Even with portrait mode, I noticed that the iPhone 15 captures sharper details in terms of my face and clothes. While the difference is minimal, it still makes the iPhone 15 slightly better than the iPhone 14 in this regard. Edge detection also appears to be improved in the newly released iPhone 15. So what's your take on this comparison? Which one do you prefer? Personally, I lean towards the iPhone 15 being slightly better. But to be honest, these days, differences are quite minor because phone cameras have become so advanced, leaving little room for significant improvements. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching, and for more content like this, please think about subscribing to my channel.